existed, that when his existence was removed, it could no longer remain in existence. That's what I think people really thought. That's what I think really happened, because the righteous one had been taken away, and therefore the city could no longer survive. It wasn't that they took him away, or that they were responsible. He was taken away by an illegitimate establishment, much like Lincoln was taken away from America, and we had 100 years of problems after that. So it isn't the American people aren't responsible for the assassination of Lincoln. Or Kennedy for that matter. Anyway, but terrible things ensued. So he was the brother of him called the Christ, who was slain notwithstanding his preeminent righteousness. That's why it was called the just one. The same writer, now Clement, still in the 20th, oh, this is Josephus now. Josephus, that was Josephus. That phrase, these things happened to the Jews to avenge James the just, that's not in any Josephus that we have. So we don't know where he got that from. Only that the same writer has added in the 20th book of his Antiquities this other testimony. This is in the Antiquities. We have this other one. But Caesar, having learned the death of Festus and Albinus, now we're getting the historical background, 62 AD. But the younger Ananus, the son of the older Ananus, who was at the trial of Jesus, whom we mentioned before, Josephus mentioned him, had obtained the priesthood, was very rash and daring, and he was of the sect of the Sadducees, which are more strict in judgment than others, as we have shown. Ananus, therefore, being of this impulsive character, supposing it a suitable opportunity in consequence of the death of Festus and Albinus, yet on the way called the Sanhedrin of the judges together, and bringing thither the brother of Jesus, who was called the Christ, whose name was James. Now, I'm not sure that part of the testimony exactly like that is in the present Josephus. You'd have to compare it with some others, presented an accusation against them. So he calls him the brother of Jesus here. Those in the city that seemed most modern and most accurate in observing the law, however, the more righteous, were greatly offended at what was done, and sent to the king, telling him to tell Ananus not to do this. And some also went out to meet the new governor, or the king, I guess it is, as he came from Alexandria, and informed him that it was not lawful for Ananus to summon a Sanhedrin without his knowledge. This is Agrippa 2. Albinus, indeed, on this account, writes to Ananus in a rage. I guess it is Albinus that they asked, threatening that he should call him to account. But Agrippa, for the same reason, took him from the priesthood after he held it for 3 months, and appointed Jesus, the son of Demeas, as his successor. These accounts are given about James, who is said to have written the epistle in his name. But it observed that the epistle is considered spurious. That means even, funnily enough, Eusebius thinks it's a spurious epistle. Which is odd that he should think that is spurious and other things aren't. So even in Eusebius' time, the epistle of James was not considered authentic, because none of the ancients mentioned it, and not even the epistle of Jude, that one too, is considered spurious even then. Nevertheless, we know these things are publicly used in most churches. Okay, that is the testimony there. And how are we doing for time on this thing?
It's hard to tell. It'll let me know.
That'll let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the testimony then. That's really interesting. Should be analyzed a bit more. First of all, we have the testimony from the Antiquities that still exists. That's the first place that James is actually called the brother of Jesus. If that's in the irregular Antiquities, I can't remember. You have the irregular Antiquities here. You want to look it up in book 20, testimonies, and read what we have there of the Antiquities, or look in your index, James, the brother of Jesus, and you'll get the actual page. So you can read us that as it presently stands and see if it's the same as Eusebius says it was at his time. Also, that the people thought that this fall of Jerusalem was because of the death of James, not because of the death of Jesus. That does make more sense to me. And in fact, he gets angry here because he says, I think at one point, at least Origen gets angry if Eusebius doesn't, that in his Josephus, he saw this thing about the people thinking that Jerusalem fell because of the death of James. So there was another testimony in another work, probably another version of the Jewish War that didn't get translated. And it makes more sense to think that people, suppose Jesus died in 30 AD and Jerusalem fell in 70 AD. That would be like saying we're in 2000, we would say America fell because of the death of Kennedy. Suppose we fell in 2000, or that's a good example. The World Trade Center was hit because Kennedy was killed. It's not the way that people normally think. People normally think more recent events. Well, that happened because we didn't behave properly in the Gulf War, or something like that. Normally it's something closer in. And so I think that the idea that Jerusalem fell because of the death of Jesus is probably, again, a refurbishment of the idea that the people had that the Jerusalem fell because of the death of James. I think that is true, that a lot of people thought that. The same as we have that testimony that they thought that Herod Antipas had been defeated in battle because of what he did to John the Baptist. And again, it testifies to the fact that all these people are popular leaders. Did you find that?
He described as the brother of Jesus.
Yeah, read it to us. It's basically the same.
Festus was now dead, and Albinus was but upon the road. So he assembled the Sanhedrin of judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others.
Okay, so there it is. He's got the exact same words there. He's got it word for word. So that testimony there, even as it stands now, goes back to 300 AD. And hasn't been changed since then. So that's really very interesting. Again, those things are really interesting. I want to move along here to some more stuff here. Let's see. Nero, of course, is the negative person in the next chapter. This is based on Tertullian. Nero was the first that persecuted this doctrine. Nero also was very nasty about Jews generally. And he clearly sent governors to goad the Jews into revolt, says Josephus. And Josephus usually didn't say such things. And also, as I told you, he kicked his wife to death, whom Josephus had met not long before, because she was interested in religious causes, as Josephus puts it, primarily Jewish ones. He may not have even think that it was his child that she was carrying, as I told you. And Josephus is on a mission to Rome to rescue some priests that